This is Ibongeleziambo with the news on Zodiac. Coming up at this hour, High Court orders assessment of rightful claimants of the Era 18 sewage spillage saga in 21 days. The State House backs appointment of judges in diplomatic missions. MCCI says economic prospects made by Finance Minister Mlusu difficult in view of present harsh economic times. And in sports news, Nyasa Big Bullet striker Hassan Kajoke leaves for trials at South Africa Premier Soccer League side Cape Town City. Now the news in detail. The High Court has directed lawyers representing victims of the Era 18 sewage spillage saga to conduct an assessment in the next 21 days on the rightful beneficiaries for compensation. In his ruling on Monday, Registrar of the Court, Anthony Kapachiswe, said only those who appeared on the summon paper are likely to benefit from the compensation. Defendants in the case, Lilongwe City Council and Malawi Housing Corporation, protested in the court that figures of the claimants had been exaggerated to reach 1,000. Chimwemparata reports.
Area 18 victims of the 2017 sewage saga had to wait a little longer before they get their compensation, as the High Court has now ordered a fresh assessment for the next 21 days. Initially, over 1,000 families claimed compensation, but the ruling is directing that only those whose names appeared on the summon paper are eligible for the compensation. Gifty Gatundu is one of the lawyers representing the victims.
We had an explanation to say we had presented families. So in families there are even family members. So we had included those family members. But the court has taken the view to say we should proceed by way of assessing individuals who appear on the summons.
Lilongwe City Council's lawyer, Counsel Isaac Nkono Songea, said after the ruling, the amount of compensation will be known after the 21 days assessment.
The way forward is that the court will proceed to set a date for assessment. Today's ruling was following an objection that was made by Malawi Housing Corporation and supported by Lilongwe City Council, that additional names that were not part of the proceedings all along should be struck out, and the court has agreed with the defendants that those names would have to be struck out. There were over 200 names.
The spillage of sewage into Lilongwe Water Board pipelines is blamed on the Lilongwe City Council and Malawi Housing Corporation. For Zodiac, this is Chimwemwe Padanta.
State House has defended a decision by the Tonsa administration to redeploy 2 judges to embassies, saying the country needs their expertise in diplomatic missions. Speaking during the State House brief at Kamuzu Palace in Lilongwe on Monday, State House Press Secretary Brand Banda further said that the decision would not compromise the judiciary, saying President Chakwera recently appointed a number of new judges. Winston Kaimira has filed this report.
Recently, President Lazarus Chakwera appointed 2 High Court judges, Esme Jombo and Agnes Patemba, to serve in diplomatic missions, a move which some stakeholders argue may affect judicial services, which already face the challenge of shortage of judges. But State House has defended the move, saying services of the judges are crucial in operations of Malawi embassies they have been redeployed to. Presidential spokesperson Brand Banda said during the State House media brief in Lilongwe that, for instance, the United Kingdom, where Judge Patemba has been redeployed to, is Malawi's strategic nation, which requires an office of her caliber.
We are only taking 2 when we have appointed Ambiri.
But Banda could not comment on matters surrounding bills which have attracted mixed views after being presented to Parliament, saying Parliament would decide the way forward. He also dismissed allegations by former President Peter Mutharika that the current government administration has failed to fulfill its promises, saying President Chakwera has on several occasions outlined government's policy direction on matters such as mining and public sector reforms.
As the budgets are continuing to be presented in Parliament, the signs are there. AIP has been done. Duty week, it's been done.
This is Winston Kaimira reporting for Zodiac.
Blantyre International University has set mandatory guidelines to all students graduating in September to get COVID-19 vaccine. BIU Dean of Academics Gray Manganda confirmed that the institution has set up the controversial guidelines as a response to the rising cases of the pandemic and to protect the graduating students. However, Director of the Health and Social Services for Blantyre District, Dr. Gift Kawalazira, has forwarded the institution saying it is against government state COVID-19 guidelines. Zuleka Nanguo and Solisi Nangoma filed this report.
On 21 April this year, Blantyre International University BIU issued a memo to all students graduating in September that they must undergo mandatory COVID-19 vaccination to be part of the graduation ceremony. This idea was received with a backlash by the students who tried to protest. However, this seems to have gone on deaf ears. Almost 3 months down the line, and about less than 2 months to the graduation day, the institution still stands by its ground. Today, the Dean of Academics, Gray Manganda, says it cannot take any risk, more especially at the time when COVID-19 cases are rising, hence the decision for the mandatory jab.
People graduating in absentia is not a problem. So people who insist on not being vaccinated, if for whatever reason they don't want to come, they can arrange with the college. And I think that happens all over the place. You never have 100% participation in graduation. People do have excuses, and people have excuses. But the excuse of saying, I don't want to be vaccinated, it's not a good excuse.
But Director of Health and Social Services for Blantyre District, Dr. Gift Kawalazira, finds the decision by BIU as irregular, arguing that no one is supposed to be forced to be vaccinated.
No, that is irregular. Government policy says that the vaccination is not compulsory. If they want, they should arrange for a screening exercise where we can test everyone else, and then only those that will come out with COVID-19 negative are the ones that can actually attend the graduation.
One of the students who finished his studies in 2019, who opted for anonymity, says he will boycott the event should the institution still press ahead with its decision.
Yeah, our concern is about it's like the situation is taking a choice from the person, since it's my personal choice to get either vaccinated or not.
Should BIU succeed with its plan to force students to get COVID-19 vaccine, it will become the first institution in the country to achieve this.
The government has assured people in the country that the price of fertilizer and affordable input program will remain the same despite a general rise in cost of bags of fertilizer on the market. But speaking to Zodiak Ministry of Agriculture spokesperson Christian Lungu says the increase will not affect the AIP program. However, agriculture commentator Tamani Nkonomvula maintains that the price will be affected because most of the inputs used in the program are imported. Some members of the Reformed Timber Millers Union have started staging videos at the Chikangawa plantation managers' offices demanding government to remove some foreign companies in the forest and give some space to locals. According to President for the group, Paul Ntambazali, the group made the request a long time ago, but government has not been responding. Dowera Kumwenda filed this report.
President for Reformed Timber Millers Union, Paul Ntambazali, says after engaging government, it has responded to some of their concerns, but one of the major issues of invading the forest and allocating more land to foreigners is still going on. He said, for instance, some local companies are also harvesting timber without licenses with full knowledge of forestry and government officials, while some people are being penalized. He said, for instance, their group, Reformed Timber Millers Union, has on several times been chased out of the forest at the expense of foreign companies.
Asking the government again, consider your fellow Malawians. We are in big trouble. We are in problem. What is happening now is some other people, let me be very frank, the Department of Forest in particular is favoring our friends. They got our trees, we complained to the government, and the government went to the court, and the government won that case, but they were still operating in the forest. We are very shocked about this, because whenever a member or RTMU has maybe done something wrong, the government immediately sends soldiers, the game rangers, to chase us out.
The grouping has since dropped a petition at the Chikangawa Forestry Office where they are conducting a video requesting government to resolve their issues. Vipya Plantation's forestry officer, Custom Nyenda, says he has received a petition and will forward it to relevant authorities.
I've received the petition and I'll forward it to the necessary authorities in Lilongwe.
The grouping has since threatened to continue vigils until government meets their concerns. For Zodiak in Mzuzu, I'm Tuera Kumwinda.
Research findings on Malawi's construction industry have revealed that the sector is flooded with local and imported substandard construction materials. Engineer Patsani Kumambala of Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, who conducted the research on behalf of the National Construction Industry Council, has recommended that it's high time the country start making own construction equipments. Steve Zimba reports.
National Construction Industry Council of Malawi engaged a Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources-based consultant, Engineer Patsani Kumambala, to conduct a research on how the construction sector is faring. Amongst major findings, Engineer Kumambala found that fake local and imported construction materials have flooded the country's market, and this in return is affecting quality of various infrastructure development. But moving forward, he suggests on how Malawi should approach this problem.
We have construction materials which are substandard locally. They have flooded the market, and at the same time we are paying more on importing construction materials. But if we can manage to produce some of these things, like floor tiles, we produce them here, we will reduce the burden on the importation burden which the country is actually facing.
Apart from fake construction materials flooding the sector, issues of corruption, lack of access to credit facilities are some of the problems rocking the construction industry. Chief Executive Officer for the National Construction Industry Council of Malawi, Linda Piri, says several measures are already being taken, including the issue of addressing substandard construction materials that have overwhelmed the country.
We have already drafted a memorandum of agreement that is going to be signed by the Commission, the NCIC and the Malawi Bureau of Standards. So we believe that these three stakeholders coming together will start to work on the ground to make sure that the materials being imported at the standards are being enforced both at entry levels as well as those that are being manufactured within the country.
The research targeted contractors, consulting engineers, among others. For Zodiak in Mzuzu, this is Steve Zimba reporting.
You're watching News on Zodiac. We'll be right back. Stand by.
Hello and welcome. We'll bring you an update on the 2021 tobacco market after 11 weeks of sales. The rate of no-sale rejection on the auction belly market was high in week 11 compared to that registered in week 10. The average rate of 42% no-sale rejection was recorded in week 11 compared to 38% registered in week 10. Cumulatively, 86.9 million kilograms of all tobacco types were traded at an average price of $1.64 per kilogram, from which the country has generated $143 million after 11 weeks of sales. During the same comparative period last year, 72.7 million kilograms of tobacco had been sold at an average price of $1.51 per kilogram, which raked in $110.2 million. For the current market trends, belly tobacco prices improved by an average gain of 1%, while flue and dark-fired prices were on the decline in the week under review. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching.
We all start differently, but we can all start with the strongest protection. Because some start early, others start late. Some from little homes, others from big ones. Some start together, or all on their own.
It doesn't matter how you start, as long as you start strong. With new Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection. Now with fluoride plus arginine for 4 times more strengthening power. So that you can give them the strongest start to their day. Colgate. Start strong, stay strong.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the headlines as we continue the news. High Court orders assessment of rightful claimants of the Area 18 sewage spillage saga in 21 days. State House backs appointment of judges in diplomatic missions. MCCCI says economic prospects made by Finance Minister Mlusu difficult in view of present harsh economic times. And in sports, Nyasa Big Bullet striker Hassan Kajoke leaves for trials at South Africa Premier Soccer League side Cape Town City. The Malawi Confederation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry says the economic prospects that the Minister of Finance has made are very difficult to be attained in view of harsh economic times that Malawi is going through. In its May economic review, MCCCI is baffled with foreign exchange rate whereby they will be maintained at 780 kwacha to $1 despite the local currency losing the grip against foreign currencies. Andrew Viano filed this report.
Private sector captains in the country, Malawi Confederation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, MCCCI, has expressed reservations on some of the prospects by government in the 2021-22 national budget, citing the economy cannot support the prospects. MCCCI has said this in their May economic review, which they have released last weekend. Among others, the body has cast out of a projection that inflation will not go beyond 8% and that exchange rate will be maintained at 780 kwacha to $1, despite the fact that the local currency is hovering around 800 kwacha to $1 at the moment. On official foreign reserves of the country, MCCCI says despite the country being in agricultural market season, import cover has been between 1.88 in April, which is worrying. Economic expert Milward Tobias says government should make use of insights from stakeholders from MCCCI in order to straighten some economic challenges.
What is needed, in my view, is for government to respond to the private sector needs. And one of the needs that private sector has always complained about is actually the arrears. We all know that interest rates in the commercial banks are high. Now, when you have procured goods and services from private sector and you don't pay, you actually stifling their capital, and where they would have had a recourse to, which actually the banks, the interest rates are so high. And if we are talking about creating jobs when you can't pay private sector for the goods and services that they have provided, how do you create jobs?
In his winding up statement before passing of budget, Finance Minister Felix Mlusu said government has in place measures that will ensure the prospects are attained.
Staying with business news, Malawi has raked in $143 million from 86.9 million kilograms of tobacco in week 11 of the tobacco market this year. AHO Group spokesperson Teresa Ndanga says the revenue generated is higher compared to $110 million earned from 72.9 million kilograms same time last season. But the rejection rate continues to go up and down with a 42% record in week 11, which is higher than the 88% recorded in week 10. Nom Kobe reports from Kasungu.
AHL Group of Companies spokesperson Teresa Ndanga says the country has sold 86.9 million kilograms of tobacco in week 11, the volume which is higher than last year's 72.9 million kilograms same period. She says the green gold has generated $143 million, an equivalent of about 114 billion kwacha to date.
The country again has generated more revenue this time around if we compare it with the last season. By the end of the 11th week, we had generated $143 million as compared to $110 million that we had registered by the 11th week in the year 2020.
According to Ndanga, the average minimum price has stagnated at $1.64 this season, while last season it was around $1.51. However, the rejection rate has risen from 38% in week 10 to 42% in week 11 of this year's tobacco marketing season. This has worried Tama Farmers Trust President Ebo Kanimabanda, who has pleaded with buyers to consider the energy and resources farmers had invested to produce the green gold.
The tobacco is rejected twice or 3 times. It means now the quality will be reduced to low. After that, the low grade, and then the price also will be lower.
Malawi is this year expected to produce 123 million kilograms of tobacco. For Zodiak, this is Noor Nkubwi, Kasungu.
Old Mutuals asked people in the country to develop a culture of initiating transformative programs that will improve livelihoods of people in rural areas. Old Mutual Marketing Manager Patience Chatsika said this on Monday at the end of Sinsonke competition in Blantyre. Christopher Sunday reports.
Old Mutual organized the Sinsonke competition in order to reward real-life heroes in communities in Malawi, Zimbabwe, South Africa and Kenya. A charitable organization, Otakarika Charitable Foundation from Mulanje, has emerged an overall winner, getting a monetary prize of 5.5 million kwacha. The organization's executive director, Aida Puliwamwango, says her organization focuses in supporting tertiary needed students, implementing palliative services, sustainable agriculture, agroforestry, among others.
Our organization is aimed at uplifting the lives of the most vulnerable members of the society, and we have programs in education, health, food security, women and girls empowerment, and also in climate change.
Old Mutual Marketing Manager Patience Chatsika says they have learned a lot from the competition.
We have learned that there are indeed other people there who also have a cautious in whatever they are doing. So there are people out there who are responsible for other people's needs, and they also need to impact whatever they have learned, whatever they can do to other communities as well.
Apart from Otakarika Charity Foundation, that pocketed 5.5 million kwacha, Voices Awake Girls Organization and Peter Ndalasini have each got 1.4 million kwacha from their notable contribution in supporting the girl child. Reporting for Zodiac from Blantyre, this is Christopher Sunday.
We now go to sports news. Nyasa Big Bullet striker Hassan Kajoke has left the country for South Africa, where he is expected to undergo a 3-week trial at Premier Soccer League side Cape Town City. The club's chief administration officer, Albert Chigoga, told us that they believe the player will pass the trials and play in the Rainbow Nation, as he has proved his worth in the TNM Super League. The development means Kajoke will not be available for the Flames at COSAFA Cup, which is expected to start tomorrow. Brad Kanyama filed this report.
Nyasa Big Bullets prolific striker Hassan Kajoke has attracted interest from South Africa's DStv Premier Soccer League outfit Cape Town City and has left the country to undergo trials at the club. Kajoke is placed second on top scorers list in the TNM Super League with his 10 goals from 21 games, 2 behind leading top scorer Maxwell Podo. Nyasa Big Bullets Chief Administrative Officer Albert Chigoga told us this morning that the striker will be in the Rainbow Nation for at least 3 weeks, as his trials starts today and will conclude on 31st July 2021. Chigoga said they have no doubt of Kajoge's capabilities and they are expecting him to pass the trials and sign a contract.
Hassan Kajoge is a very talented football player. The records are there for all to see. At one point, Hassan Kajoge had scored more goals than any other player in the Super League. He is an international striker who plays for the national team. These are attributes that we believe will actually play to his advantage. If the Cape Town City shows an interest after seeing the player during the trials, the two clubs are going to enter negotiations.
The development means the striker will not be available for the Flames at the 2021 COSAFA Cup, scheduled to start tomorrow in South Africa. Kajoge becomes a 5th player to undergo trials outside the country from Nyasa Big Bullets in the past 3 years, after Mike Nkwate, Charles Petro, Peter Banda and Precious Sambani. For Zodiac, this is Bright Kanyama.
About 4 prominent referees have been excluded from the list of match officials to take charge of this year's football campaign effective 1st July to November. The National Referees Association has released the list today, but some referees who have FIFA badges are missing on the list, and several others whose games ended in controversies or were abandoned have also been left out. The development comes on the background of the concerns over the poor standards of officiation rocking the current league campaign. And that's how we conclude this edition of news. And before we go, a look at the headlines. High Court orders assessment of rightful claimants of the Era 18 sewage spillage saga in 21 days. State House backs appointment of judges in diplomatic missions. MCCCI says economic prospects made by Finance Minister Mlusu difficult in view of present harsh economic times. And finally, in sports news, Nyasa Big Bullets striker Hassan Kajoke leaves for trials at South Africa Premier Soccer League side Cape Town City. Visit our website zodiacmalai.com for more news. This is Sibongile Ziambo. Thank you for watching and goodbye.